Coming to you from Charm City, I'm Anthony.
And I'm Cece.
And this is Lit
Pop
Bang. Hey, we have a great show for you today. Welcome back, everybody. And welcome to our guest, Danny. What's up?
Hey, I'm so glad to be back.
I'm so glad you're back too.
Danny is a repeat offender, as I like to call them here.
Our first returning guest.
Oh, that's true, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even.
So,
yes.
Our very first. We had Danny on. Listeners may remember on our bookseller episode, and now we want to come back and just have a conversation with Danny about the work he does there, about his newest book, and about his poetry. So before we get to that, Cece, why don't you kick us off with an introduction?
Awesome. Ready to do it. All right, here we go. Danny Kane is the author of Poetry Collections, Continental Breakfast by Mason Jar Press, 2019, El Dorado Freddy's, collaboration with Tara Ray, Belt Publishing, 2020, and Flavortown, Harpoon Books, 2020. And the book How to Resist Amazon and Why by Microcosm Publishing, 2021. His poetry has appeared in Lit Hub, Diagram, Hobart, and Barrel House, and his prose has appeared in Lit Hub and Publishers Weekly. The Midwest Independent Booksellers Association awarded him the 2019 Midwest Bookseller of the Year, yay, award. He lives in Lawrence, Kansas, where he owns Raven Bookstore, and he's here with us today, Danny Kane. Welcome.
Thanks for joining us, Danny.
Thanks. Yeah.
So you may remember, I think we asked this last time, but if not, you may have heard it on the show before. But after your official bio, your website, artists, what they read at panels bio, we always like to ask guests, like, that's you on page. What's else something that is you? What is you that's not there in the bio?
I don't think you asked me this last time.
No?
Oh, okay. Well, here we go.
No,
First time. Awesome.
It's a great question. This is what comes to mind right now. I love dogs, but I don't currently have any through various combinations of circumstances. But like, I have 3 cats in my care. I have a cat at home and 2 at the bookstore, and no dogs.
That's tragic, Danny.
So like,
tragic.
there are always these jokes that like, what would your 16-year-old self say upon meeting the current you? And I'm pretty sure the 16-year-old me would be like, why the hell do you have so many cats? What is wrong with you?
Like, this isn't right. This is what we envisioned. That's great. Cece, you want to start us off with talking about the new book, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's what we're here to do today. First of all, Danny, congratulations on the book.
It's
I
great.
just read all of it last night, so I have lots and lots of questions. But before we jump into the questions, I want to really just sort of ground our listeners in how this book came to fruition, how to Resist Amazon sort of started. Go from tweets to zine to book. If you could give like a general kind of overview of how the book came to life.
Right. I love telling this story because the whole thing was really kind of DIY, and it had a spirit of being, I don't know, it's just a fun story. So the Raven bookstore, which I own and run, has long made a part of what it does, talking about the importance of small businesses and advocating for businesses like the Raven and trying to educate people about the dangers of big corporations and corporate monopolies. And for a long time in the 90s, the Raven was having that conversation about big bookstore chains. And now, of course, the big elephant in the room is Amazon rather than the bookstore chains. And so we've transitioned what we talked about to that, and we've transitioned how we talk about it from talking in store and to newspaper reporters to social media and kind of taking that online. And so a couple of years ago, some tweets from the Raven gained a lot of attention and got picked up and written about in national media. And some friends began encouraging me to put together a zine of the Amazon stuff. And one friend, Ben Cartwright, who lives in Spokane, and he and his home bookstore, which is Auntie's Bookstore in Spokane, we're kind of talking about like, wouldn't it be great if there was just something we could hand a customer that was like how to unplug from Amazon? And then my friend Suzanne, who runs Maxbacks Books in Cleveland, saw this letter I posted to Jeff Bezos online and was like, you need to make a broadside out of this so I can sell it to my customers. And those two ideas kind of combined into a zine called How to Resist Amazon and Why, which I was self-publishing and self-distributing for the first month or so. To the tune of thousands of zines, where it was taking over my life. And it was most evenings I was at home with a long arm stapler at my dining room table, just doing another stack of 250.
Crazy.
We couldn't keep them in stock at the Raven, and more bookstores were interested in carrying them. And so Microcosm Press out of Portland, which is this cool punk kind of zine and book press, reached out to me at the time when I needed the most help. And they were like, we want to sign you to a non-exclusive contract, so we'll distribute a version of this zine. You can keep going with your self-published one if you want. And I was super thankful for the help. And also I really admired, they're maybe the only publisher in the United States who won't sell to Amazon. They don't have a direct relationship to Amazon. And they've made a conscious effort to unplug. And so they were a great fit for the project. And they that was in October 2019 when they picked it up. They went through the first printing, I think, of 5,000 in a month or two.
Wow.
And by the time they were doing the reprint, they were like, well, people are so interested in this. This could be a book if you want to do it. And we went back and forth a little bit about what the book would look like, but then we settled on this kind of tiny paperback that's a mix of research-based advocacy and anecdote-based small business charm. Yeah. And I spent last year writing it, and here it is.
And here it is.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so like I'm a poet. Like I never thought I would write a book like this, but it just kind of happened that way, and I'm proud of it, and I'm really happy to work with Microcosm. Yeah. So it's as surprising to me as anybody else, but I'm happy to be part of this conversation.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I think, go ahead. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And the conversation's really lucky to have you too. Like one of the things I was reading about is like how you sort of, and we talked about this a bit on the last episode, he sort of fell into being a bookstore owner. And I really love the idea of like you as a poet who sort of fell into this have become a major voice in among booksellers and now among like just what creating and sharing books in the 21st century looks like.
Yeah, when people started paying attention to what the Raven was saying and what the tweets were doing, I just was like, I can't waste this platform. If I'm lucky enough and privileged enough to have a platform and people listening to me, I need to use it for good. And the immediate cause that we attached ourselves to was just an extension of what the Raven has always done. And so we've always said this stuff. Let's just say it louder to a bigger audience, and I'll do what I can to push this dialogue forward.
That's so rad.
Yeah, totally. Danny, I have a question that's going to sound a bit like I'm pushing against the grain here, but believe you me, I'm on the same side. But I want to really know, when I read through this, like I said, let me first say that a lot of the information I did not know actually reading the book. So I'm thankful for that. I mean, some of the bigger overground things I knew about how Amazon, gets third-party vendors to handle its delivery. And, there were things that I knew. And then there were things that I did not about, like Amazon owning these, Ring cameras that are at the doors of, of people's houses. So there was a lot of information that I didn't know. But one of the things I felt when reading this book is like, I'm on the same side as you are. I'm definitely a person who like goes to a local farmer's market, believes in supporting my local bookstore, right? But what about people who are out there who are just like not that community oriented, not that interested in getting into politics? I mean, because a lot of this is really politics, right? I mean, not politics on the big scale level, but it's really about, the health and wealth of society in an interesting sort of way, right? So I'm interested in how do you approach or how do you get that person who never thinks about this kind of thing, who isn't sad when their local mom and pop coffee shop goes out of business, right? Because it's a certain kind of like, there's a certain characteristic, I think, to the person who reads this book and says yes, right? You understand what I'm saying? But I'm more interested in how you're going to bring in or how you're going to lure people who sit on the outside of this sort of issue or say to themselves, hey, Amazon delivers my boxes. I'm really happy with that. I don't know why I need to be concerned about exclusive rights on books or, if they ban me from getting my latest Margaret Atwood or yada yada. How do you do that? How do you know what I mean? How do you convince that person?
It's a really good question. I don't think anyone's asked me that yet. And I think what I will say, this might sound like a dodge, but I hesitate to pin all of the responsibility for fixing Amazon on the individual consumer.
Okay.
And this is a government problem with a government solution. And I think the question is not why does Amazon do this? That has a clear answer. They do this because they're allowed to, and they can make a ton of money doing it. And Jeff Bezos is clearly someone who's just interested in making as much money as possible.
Right.
The more interesting question, and the question I think we need to spend time on, is why have they been allowed to do this? And that's where the government comes in, and that's where the solution is going to come. I have unplugged from Amazon completely,
right.
And that's
for 2 years, right? That's what the book says. For 2 years, yeah.
And that's a value-based decision. That's a political decision on my part, and that's a decision about me trying to spend money at places that reflect my own personal values. But I don't think I'm punishing Amazon by withdrawing my money. It makes no difference to them. Like, statistically, It's such a small drop in the bucket. It's more about the things I value and the places I want to support. To fix Amazon, there needs to be policy level action, and so the question of the people who like Amazon and use it and don't care about the small businesses closing in their town, what do? I think you call the people who represent them in Washington D.C. and in City Hall and try to get them to rein in corporate overreach and monopolies.
Yeah, that's amazing. That actually leads to something that was on my list. I wasn't sure I was going to ask, but it seems like the perfect time. You had this really great write-up in The New Yorker, and it's a long read that really talks about what you're doing, both in the book and in the store. And you mentioned the ideas from books from Matt Stoller and David Dayen. And them talking about how Amazon has a legislative advantage over independent bookstores. And you talk about, we can all imagine, like Cece said, like, we know they have a distribution advantage and a marketing advantage, but can you tell us more about what sort of legislative advantages they have over indies?
Yeah, and this is really important because the legislative solutions aren't that hard. It's what it would, vigorous enforcement of laws we already have would go a long way. This is not an issue of making new laws. It's just how we interpret and enforce the laws we already have. And the main law in question is the Sherman Act, which is the central piece of anti-monopoly, antitrust legislation that's been enacted in the United States. And in the 1970s, this guy named Robert Bork published a really influential paper called The Antitrust Paradox, where basically he's arguing that if a company is lowering prices, it's good for consumers. And that's how we need to interpret antitrust law. And so basically it gives companies that offer lower prices than other companies a free pass to do whatever they want because low prices are good for consumers. And this guy named Ronald Reagan really fell in love with this idea, and, the rest is history. So Amazon, and that's still how we interpret these laws today. And like Amazon, the government under this interpretation doesn't care about Amazon's labor rights violations, how they treat their workers, what they do to the communities where they have a large presence. There's a lot of ways to measure whether a company does, whether it's good or bad. But right now, the way antitrust law is interpreted is just based on low prices, and Amazon can say, we've lowered prices, we're good for the consumer, and like that's the end of the story. Fortunately, there are a lot of really influential thinkers that are doing great work, like those authors David Dayen and Matt Stoller. Their books are really interesting and important. Another important figure is Lina Khan, who wrote kind of a response to Robert Bork's paper called Amazon's Antitrust Paradox. That really changed the way a lot of people think about this. And we need to, that consumer welfare standard is not, it's not equipped to handle companies this big or this powerful. And, Lina Khan has been nominated as commissioner for the FTC by Joe Biden. And that's a hugely influential and powerful position if it goes through. And so I think that's a signal, a really hopeful signal from the administration that they're taking this seriously. And which I will note is a different tack from the Obama administration, which just loved Barack Obama loved Amazon. Jay Carney, the former Obama press secretary, is now a spokesperson at Amazon. So that gives you an indication of how they felt about big tech. But I do think we're seeing some indication from the Biden administration that they're ready to take this on.
That's amazing.
Wow, that's hopeful, and I never knew that.
Yeah.
I mean, I had my own issues with Barack Obama, but I digress about that. We can't get into that today. We don't have that much time. Right, exactly. We don't have time for that. But Danny, I want to take a little bit of a departure. We're still talking about the book, but one of the things you really do in the book that I like is you tell stories. I mean, you're a storyteller, you're a poet at heart, so there are stories wrapped into this book that I think are both important and really interesting. And one of them that I think I don't want to give all the stories away in the book because I do want people to go out and purchase this book from Microcosm, of course. But one of the stories is really lovely to me. The story about Missy McCoy, the co-owner of the former Paradise Cafe and Bakery, and her book that you guys sell there at the Raven. So I'm wondering if you could tell people a little bit about her creating this self-published book that seems to sell out all the time in your bookstore. And what I think is really odd and probably could be inspirational for listeners is, for people thinking about self-publishing or thinking about unplugging from Amazon, this is the kind of story that I think people need to hear, right? You know what I'm saying? Is that I've never heard of someone who doesn't have a book, who's not on Amazon, who's selling, hundreds and thousands of copies in a bookstore. So I think this story, the Paradise Cafe and Bakery Cookbook, is a really a story that sort of illuminates the heart of the issues that you're sort of talking about. So would you mind sort of talking about that a little bit?
Yeah, not at all. I love talking about this book. And I think this is a really important story, and it's a demonstration of the quiet power of the independent bookstore. Yeah. So there was a restaurant in Lawrence, downtown Lawrence, called the Paradise Cafe that closed long before I got there to Lawrence. It closed, I think, in 2008. And I moved to Lawrence in 2014. So, but the memory of this place lives on among a generation of Lawrencians who have fond memories of it. And Missy McCoy, who's she was the public facing owner of it. She self-published a cookbook with all the recipes and some photos. And we've sold more than 1,000 copies of this book through the Raven in the last 10 years. It is one of the 2 best-selling books that at the Raven all time.
That's amazing.
Both of which are self-published restaurant books.
Wow.
So and both of which aren't available on Amazon or really anywhere else.
Right.
We keep selling it. It's hot. Missy, I told her it was when she found out that it was in the book and it was a Lawrence bestseller. She had little Lawrence bestseller stickers printed, so you could put them on the cover of the book.
I love it. I love it.
I love it. Every bookstore has a book that's like this, that only they sell, and it's often something local. Or every bookstore has this one weird thing that they do that only they do, and it's so important for community building. I think of Atomic Books in Baltimore, which is a great store, and they have that whole thing with John Waters. That's so cool. I love, and not to mention their amazing selection of comics and kind of outsider lit. It's a great place, and this is the kind of community building stuff that Amazon is not interested in. So, for the most part, you can get almost all of the books at the Raven, except for the Paradise Cafe cookbook, you can get on Amazon. But what you can't get from Amazon is these kind of intangible community building things.
Yeah.
Which is super important, and that's why I wanted to include stories of it in the book, because I didn't want the book to be too preachy or alarming. People really respond to positive arguments a lot better. I didn't want to be a scold. I didn't want to shame people for their purchasing behaviors. Yeah. And so one strategy for that was to include these heartwarming stories about the small but powerful ways that independent bookstores build community.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's great. And like I said, it's amazing. And it also shows, I got to say, it's a hustler spirit. You understand what I'm saying? Even you sitting at home on the table, stapling those zines together, I'm like, wow, that is inspirational, just to think about someone who is dedicated to their, to whatever they want to get out in the world. You know what I mean? And I think you're right. Like I said, those are the things that sort of stand out. Of course, all of the information was, like I said, a lot of it I did not know. But I think these stories really sort of round the book out and really endear people to this book.
Thanks. Yeah, I initially said no when they wanted me to turn it into a book. 'Cause I was like, oh, it's all in the zine. And, you know, I kind of I like the idea of doing nonfiction, but like, I was like, I really want my nonfiction book to be about how great bookstores are.
Yeah.
And so we just kind of negotiated, and Joe Beal at Microcosm really wanted me, and which is great. I appreciate that. I love that. And he was like, well, let's do these little interludes. Let's include some of those. And I'm glad they're in there.
That sounds like a great partnership. Yeah.
Yeah, that's rad. Yeah, I just wanted to, Danny, you mentioned briefly Atomic and their thing with John Waters. For listeners who don't know, Atomic Books here in Baltimore in the Hamden neighborhood, they're like the home of of John Waters in Baltimore, and so they handle all of his fan mail, and as such, it's sort of his bookstore too. He comes in there regularly, like you can spot him in there not infrequently. I also want to shout them out. They're the ones who did my official book launch. They're a block and a half away from me here in Baltimore, and so they did my book launch and supported that book in a whole bunch of ways, and they're just good, rad people there. Real quick, before we move out of lit, Danny, I did want to shift a little bit. I wanted to talk about your poetry before we get out of here.
Cool. Yeah, happy to.
Yeah, so
Danny's like, I'm happy to. He's like, I've been talking about this prose stuff all podcast. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, well, I think it's great. Like I mentioned in that New Yorker, it mentions that, you know, you are a poet and you have an MFA, not an MBA. And so I think it's important we talk about that art, and it's really interesting and good art. I want to talk specifically because I think sometimes that someone can look at your poetry, which is really rich with pop culture reference, and people can be like, "Oh, yuck, Guy Fieri poems." But I think there's something else going on too, in that, like, I think of poems like "Song of My Suburbs," which opens with like "Pour One Out to Blockbuster," but also includes this very intimate and nostalgic moment within it, or the poem "In the Bathroom of the Renaissance Downtown," which opens with a quote from like one of the most celebrated contemporary poetry scholars, and it includes the line, "Fuck the politics of pissing downtown where bathrooms are reserved for paying customers." So like, I've heard people talk about like, I want to make my poems accessible, but it seems like something else is happening here in your poetry. It almost feels like you're like Trojan horsing intimacy and interesting political ideas in these poems. And so I was wondering if you could talk a bit about that, both your intentions, but also just what comes out of the poems.
I love that. That's a really generous read. Thank you. So the accessibility question is so loaded, and there's been so much great work written about it, that I encourage people to listen to anyone else other than me. But I do, generally what I go for in poetry and how it sounds is I want it to have a strong relationship with speech, with language as it's spoken. And like, I want it to have a very strong sense of voice. And the trick I'm always working to pull off is a poem that kind of goes down easy, but actually has a lot of, I put a tremendous amount of effort into sound and rhythm, while trying to maintain a kind of an easygoing speech feel. So like the mechanics of the voice, that's how I approach it and how I think about it. And I think that kind of poem is fun to read. And like, that's in the heroes, my hero. I mean, like Frank O'Hara is the king of that.
Yeah,
definitely.
So that's the poems I like to read the most. And so, you know, that's what I try to do in my work. But like, it's funny, the poetry and the Amazon book are really kind of two ways to get at the same obsession of mine, which is just how people live and eat and fall in love and form identities in a world that's too controlled by corporations. And like, this is a capitalist world. This is a world where corporations have too much power, and yet the human instinct is to still try to find meaning among all of that. And that's the obsession that will never leave me. Every writer has one obsession at the heart of what they do that never really changes. And that's how I articulate mine. I think that How to Resist Amazon and Why is a very explicit political, action-based look at that. But poetry lets you dance around it in an interesting way and try on characters and approach it with humor and voice. And so especially that first trilogy of poetry books, that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out. but I love the idea of Trojan horsing. But it's like poetry. You can do a lot of things at once with a poem, and you can sneak humor into an otherwise sad poem, or you can sneak politics into an otherwise straightforward poem. And that kind of duality, or even like triple meaning or quadruple meaning, is really appealing to me, especially because you can do it in such a short space.
So, welcome back to the pop portion of Lit Pop Bang.
Thanks for joining us. Danny stepped away for a second. He'll be back for us with the bang portion.
For sure. Yes. But meanwhile, we have a little pop culture information to talk about today.
Let's talk about it.
We always are excited, but we're starting off on a kind of low note. We have to say rest in peace to DMX. Just got the news. He was in a hospital for some days in White Plains, New York, but he passed away, died at age 50. DMX's real name is Earl Simmons. What we know, DMX has had a pretty interesting overall rap career, and I know Anthony's going to chime in a little bit, but some background about him. I sort of really particularly remember him from both the album and the movie, but the first album was called It's Dark and Hell is Hot.
Hell is Hot, yeah.
Right, exactly, in 1998. But I also remember him in the movie Belly, right?
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah. So, this is sort of like late 90s, early aughts is where, DMX really gained his popularity. But he also was like a really devout Christian, you know what I'm saying? And, but struggled with some drug addiction on and off in his life, which I think many people feel very sad about, and especially because the beginning of his drug intake happened. He was introduced to it by a mentor. So I think, we're sad to hear about his passing, but he has left us with some really great work, I think.
Yeah.
What do you feel about DMX?
Yeah,
Anthony?
I know you're a bit older than me, but I'm sort of this same impression of DMX. Not much of his later stuff, but that late 90s stuff.
Of course,
really
right.
Stuff I was really into. So loved Belly. Used to quote from Belly all the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Be born to die. In the meantime, get money.
Okay. All right. I don't.
Yeah, I was you got to consider too. Like, this is when I was a teenager, so I was really into the fast, hard life that Belly depicted.
Oh my God, I can't.
Yeah, 18-year-old. It's R.
No. I was not like. I don't. I'm also a girl. You know. You gotta.
18-year-olds who are socialized as boys and men for sure.
Right. Exactly. In that way, I'm like, I don't know. Like Menace to Society and Boys in the Hood. And all. It's like kind of like I'm like, oh, okay. You
weren't into those films?
I love them for. I love them for movies. Do you understand what I'm saying? But into them, no, I didn't have any. Other than being African American, you know what I mean? I didn't have any. Those are very male. They feel very male hetero to me.
And they're all the type of films that young dudes read in the wrong way, right?
Right.
They're
probably. Right. And so it's hard, again, I'm not saying that I didn't, and they created some of our bigger stars, if we really think back, those movies were formational for so many reasons, right? You know what I'm saying? But as far as my own personal connection, no, I was sitting at home being like, why is Lorenz Tate, in a wheelchair cursing at somebody, you know what I'm saying, or whatever, you know what I'm saying, what is going on, but yes, so DMX comes from that era, Belly comes from sort of that era of black movies, African American movies, So you liked it,
yeah, I did. I love that film. I also was really into those first two albums. I loved.
These are hugely formational on hip hop.
Yeah.
And
rap. For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Sort of that era and the music coming out of it just really redefined rap. I love Rough Riders Anthem and Party Up, but also, X Gon' Give It To You, Where the Hood At. Those are these are I think history of rap songs, right? Songs that, for sure.
And I feel again, like I said, really formational if we think about the history kind of rap, you know what I'm saying? The earlier 90s are when we were getting Tupac and Biggie, right? And so they were sort of the cinder block, the beginning cinder block, right? You know what I'm saying? And then by the time we got to the late 90s and the early aughts, rap was really developing into its own. I think DMX was hugely influential on that.
Yeah. And you have that genre, that era of rap that is influenced by the early 90s rap.
Oh, yeah,
and
of
sort
course.
of the violence associated with it, but also like the governmental response associated with it too. And this era, and DMX particularly responding all that.
Yeah.
I definitely used to have lyrics to a lot of these songs memorized. That's
Nope.
sort of kid I was.
I'm lying.
Speaking of deaths,
Yes.
we also got news today that Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, has passed away at 99 years old.
I mean, who even knew he was that old? Wow.
Yeah, 1,000,000 years old. So for those who don't follow the royal family, this is the Queen's husband.
Yes.
He's been struggling the last couple of years. He's obviously very old and been struggling the last few years. We just got news from today, getting a whole bunch of tributes to him today. But also a lot of, one of the things with both of these people is when you get to being a retrospective, you also have to look back on the uglier parts of their life and their legacy. And I think the legacy of colonialism and the legacy of Prince Philip's family are part of that conversation. And so
I think with DMX too. See, that's what I didn't talk.
Exactly. Sure.
I think, part of the conversation is, his arrests and convictions. And there are a lot of stuff. You know what I'm saying? A lot of stuff. Very complex figure.
Yeah. Who both are, but also what they mean, good and bad to everybody. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. A little bit of everything.
Let's lighten it up just a little bit.
Yes. Let's transition out of death.
Yes. Yeah. I have some nerd stuff to talk about.
Oh, love it. Love it.
Elon Musk, who I think I've said on the show before, I don't like.
Right.
I just don't like billionaires is the thing.
Well, I don't know him personally, but I don't have no love for him. You know what I'm saying? Right.
But two things today I saw from Elon Musk companies. One, he is an owner of Neuralink, which is a company that is developing artificial intelligence powered technologies. In particular, and I'm not making this up, it sounds like sci-fi stuff, they are doing research on microchips in the brain. And so they released a video as we're recording this that show a macaque monkey using that technology, a microchip in its brain, to play the video game Pong. So not using a controller, using the implant in its brain to move the things on screen.
Super scary.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so the company says that the monkey, whose name is Pager, had a chip implanted in his brain 6 weeks ago. In the video, he's given a joystick hooked up to a video game that he moves. He moves like the video game to a colored square. And then when he is successful, he gets banana smoothie fed to him through a little feeding tube. Ethically creepy as hell, both for the monkey, but also for, the vision of what this brain microchip research could be. Real creepy stuff.
I guess I'm worried about it more than hating it. I'm worried about it. You know what I mean? This kind of goes back to our conversation with Danny. I'm worried for the future, for future human beings about this. You know what I'm saying? It makes me worry for this kind of technology. Yeah.
It really like a lot of stuff Elon Musk does. It really just reminds me that a lot of people talk as though Elon Musk is this genius, this great person. And all he really is someone with a bunch of money who is putting forward ideas that high schoolers have. What if we could move things with our brain? Yeah. What if we had underground railroads, but they were just cars? What if we had these super flamethrowers or these ridiculous electric trucks? None of it's genius. It's all just those ideas, but with enough money behind them to try them out. It's ridiculous.
Scary.
Super the other thing is he also today, for some reason, along with his monkey stuff, released this video of he owns this company. I mentioned the underground train thing. He wants to build basically metro systems, but instead of rails with mass transit, for individual transit, for individual electric cars to move underground.
This seems silly.
Yeah, so ridiculous, not efficient in any way.
And I mean, don't we want to build up our own transportation infrastructure as opposed to spend money on something like this?
Right.
I mean, what about that?
Yeah,
what
it's
about
ridiculous.
that?
It's what I'm talking about, right? Like, it's not a brilliant idea. It's a ridiculous idea that doesn't see that like the future of transportation has to be mass transit, right? Based on a population boom.
Yeah.
And he's trying to just throw money at old ideas or old technologies. But this video is ridiculous. It's just debuting like this successful tunnel he's built. And it's a Tesla moving very, very slowly through this tunnel that's underneath the Las Vegas Convention Center.
I can't.
It's uninteresting. It's uninspiring. People are literally laughing at it on the internet. I know I'm a hater here for disliking him so much, but it's just ridiculous.
You might be, but also at the same time, you might be. I'm just going to be honest about that. You might be, but at the same time, I also think it's ridiculous. I'm just like, why are we so interested in this? Why would we spend? What are we doing? You know what I'm saying? He always comes up with these crazy, going to a spaceship to Mars or whatever was going on. I can't.
Yeah, I don't like him. That's all. But maybe I just don't like billionaires generally. But one person who I do like, who is a multimillionaire, you had news about basically
that's
the
a good
opposite
transition
of Elon Musk.
That's a good transition. Yeah. So one of our actually a favorite person, not all-time favorite, but a favorite person of mine, and also a favorite person of a previous podcast guest of ours, Jamie Fountaine, loves the individual I'm getting ready to talk about. Dolly Parton has a new ice cream flavor coming out. She has teamed up with an Ohio-based company called Jenny's Splendid Ice Creams to create a flavor called strawberry pretzel pie. I love even saying it.
Shit,
It
sounds so good.
okay. That's what. Okay, I was like, yes. Right now in my mouth. Yes, I would like it. I was like strawberry pretzel pie. And I just think this is amazing. The brand, Dolly Parton is 75 years old. Everybody should know who she is. She's a country music singer. She's been around for forever. She also has given money to every philanthropic cause, I think. She even gave money towards COVID vaccines, I think. Or something.
One of the big vaccines is funded by a huge grant.
Yeah, I think it's Moderna. Yeah. Right, exactly. Right. And so, I mean, this is not surprising, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you that the brand, they announced this collaboration in March. I think the ice cream is out now. And they said that the ice cream would benefit Imagination Library, which is Dolly Parton's book gifting program, which offers free books to kids to up to 5 years old. I mean, what? They're going to, the ice cream is going to give proceeds to Imagination Library for kids up to 5 to have books? I mean, Dolly Parton, I love you.
It. Yeah, this is what I'm saying.
You know what I mean?
She is the opposite of Elon Musk. He's like, let me throw my money at ridiculous stuff. And she's like,
exactly.
What if I gave kids books and funded COVID vaccines?
And made a delicious ice cream.
Yeah, you know what? The truth is, I would buy this. I'm also a big Dolly Parton fan, and I would buy this ice cream regardless.
Exactly, right.
But that flavor legit sounds amazing.
Exactly. And I mean, Dolly, I mean, I'm just going to say it again. We love you. We love everything you do. If you ever want to come on Lit Pop Bang, contact us. Contact us, girl.
We should just have these big swings in every episode. Who's our big swing? This month it's Dolly.
Yeah, maybe our listeners can help us out, hook us up and help us out.
If you can connect us to Dolly, if she wants to be on a literary podcast.
Yeah.
We'd love that.
Awesome.
Well, we could do close readings of our favorite of her songs.
No, I don't want to do. I don't want to do a close.
I would do that. I love it. I'm teaching song in one of my courses.
Oh, this is of course it's related to something.
Maybe I'll do one of Dolly's songs.
Well, that if you do it, here's what I will say. I don't want to do the close reading, but if you do it, maybe it will lure her onto the show. So I'm here for it. Here for it.
All right, we do love Dolly. We do dislike Musk. Hey, let's wrap up here and head over to Bang. What do you think about that?
That's it.
Great. We'll see you over at Bang, where Danny will be back with us.
Ready to go.
And we're back with the Bang portion of the podcast. Danny is back with us for this. I've got one for us today, guys.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
excited.
You all know that I am a fan of professional wrestling. But beyond that, I was just thinking recently about professional wrestling, mixed martial arts fighters, but also baseball players, how they all have like entrance music and walk-on music. And a dream I've always had is that this would be a normal convention of like the poetry reading or of like the lit panel.
This would be so ridiculous. I'm just going to say this would be so crazy if it actually happened, but go ahead.
Sure it would be. Of course it would be. But I think, no more ridiculous than the lit panel or the poetry reading in general, right? A bit more spectacle.
Yes, right. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, but go ahead.
Okay, so I just want to hear what would you do? What would your entrance music be? What would your walkout music be if you had walkout music for a poetry reading? Or
I'll go first. Yeah, because it came to mind so simply, so quickly. It's Mama Said Knock You Out by LL Cool J. That's it.
Going very old school. Old school. Why that?
And because it just, I don't know, it's one of those old, rap songs that feel like, very powerful, very, it has just this energy that's like, almost like a boxer fighter. I'm not into fight. As you know, you watch wrestling and stuff. I'm not into like fight. I'm a real girl like that. Like I'm not into anything of that. But this seems like if we're going to do it, right, you know what I mean? Then we have to have something that is, aggressive and just LL Cool J. And LL Cool J actually isn't even one of my like all-time favorite rappers. I mean, I lean much more towards Tribe Called Quest or something, very much more conscious rap, right? But I mean, hey, if you're gonna bring me out to something and I'm gonna try to get everybody hype, LL Cool J is where I'm going. I don't know.
That's great. Do you like? Let me ask you this: do you like LL's like R&B smooth duet stuff that he has?
Oh yeah. Like I like I Need Love. Like when I'm alone in my room, I hear my conscience call. Like I like that. I like that sort of R&B soft kind of rap, but not so much the harder sort of stuff. But I just feel like if I'm gonna come out, I need to come out like a boxer with a silk robe on and a really badass song, right? So that Mama Said Knock You Out feels like a badass song.
Wonderful. I love it. What about you, Danny? What's your entrance music?
This is my thinking is going in a couple different ways. I don't know. Like I would hate to have too big of an entrance and then disappoint people with the poem.
No,
like
it doesn't.
You have to match the vibe.
No, it doesn't matter. I think, Danny, you go big or go home. You know what I'm saying?
So I have two. I tweeted a joke the other day that I thought it would be really funny if a baseball player walked out to the song Lake Marie by John Prine, which is this. It's basically a poem. It's really this kind of sensitive and aching song about falling in love, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And it would totally screw with your opponents because like people are expecting the rap or something with loud guitars. And I think it might be a way to actually or like something like Such Great Heights by the Postal Service could really psych out that pitcher, maybe leaving a fastball over the plate.
Oh, you're going with the psychology of it. Yeah,
if I could really pull it off, and I could do it with like lights and a fog machine, and if we were really doing this,
fog machine.
That's how you do it. You got to
maybe next time I come to Baltimore, we can set up a reading that'll do this.
100%. Yes.
There we go. Love it.
I would,
love it.
And like maybe even an elevator that comes from the floor, so I just appear out of the fog.
Wow, Danny, you've thought of this.
Like Undertaker or Aleister Black.
Right, exactly. Let's Go Crazy by Prince.
Love
it. With that spoken intro, and everyone's like, where is he? I don't know. What's going on? Why are all the lights on? I think you could do it really well.
Through the fog.
And then just quietly read poems as the fog dissipates.
I love it. Prince is one of my all-time favorite artists, so I love it. Cool.
I think mine would have to be something from a musical. I think musicals are uniquely suited for this sort of thing. I'd probably go with Hedwig, and there's a track from Hedwig from the soundtrack that's not a song that Hedwig sings in the movie. It's only playing in the background called Freaks. It is a wonderful song. It is a B-side, so it'd give me hipster cred, and it'd be perfect for my work and for reading poetry.
So because I don't know this song, can you like I don't. Can you hum it? Can you? What is? I mean,
yeah,
what
the
is,
lyrics are:
is
"We
it-
are freaks. We follow the code of freaks. We stand
What?
back. We bash back. We fuck who we please and see who we choose." It's pretty great. It's wonderful.
And the music is the music slow or fast? Like, is it?
So I don't know if you've seen Hedwig, but one of the things at Hedwig is it's like a tour of the history of rock and roll.
Yeah, yeah.
And so as you progress through the movie, you get different genres of rock.
Right. Right.
And so that's actually from like, I think from like hair rock is the generation which it references.
Okay.
Like 80s hair rock's like, we are freaks. We follow the code of freaks.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of hair rock. I like
Yeah.
that. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Now you're speaking my language.
But I think in keeping with spectacle generally, any hair rock song would do, despite the fact that it's not really my aesthetic.
Yeah, I mean, I love hair rock too. I mean,
Doesn't surprise me at all.
I live for 80s hair rock. Live for it. I mean, tack. It's like bubble yum, right? It's so sweet and tastes good, and then you spit it out. But it's amazing. It's amazing when you're chewing it.
All right, y'all. Before we go, Danny, thank you so much for joining us. If people want to find you on the internet, where do they find you on the internet?
Yeah. Well, the good tweets are at Raven Bookstore, and the jokes and personal stuff are at Mr. Caine, Caine. And the bookstore is ravenbookstore.com. Thank you so much for having me, both of you. It's so good to be back.
And Danny, also, can you give? Do you know Microcosm's website for how to resist Amazon and why? Do you know them by heart? Their website?
Microcosmpublishing.com.
Awesome.
And again, great folks doing really cool work. They have a ton of other great books. So they're really worth checking out because they're doing cool stuff.
Awesome.
We'll make sure that's all in the show notes. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. And you can come back anytime. We say that wink, 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 because we know you have some new projects in the churn. So who knows? We may see you again in the nearby future here at Lit Pop Bang.
Well, hey, listeners, thank you as well as always for joining us. As always, you can find us on social media, on Insta and Twitter.
Tweet us.
Pop Bang.
Yeah,
tweet us, follow us.
Help us get Dolly Parton on the show.
Review us. Give us a thumbs up, star, whatever. Review us wherever you listen to us. Always helpful. Helps get the word out there. We love you when you do that.
Yeah, so make sure you respond to us on these social media streets. We need your love.
And we love your love. It makes us feel heard. It makes us feel cared for.
I mean, we split the tweeting, a little you, a little me, mostly you sometimes, but we both love to see when you're retweeting us and showing us love.
Yeah, we do. We love engagement with y'all, and it certainly helps, and we appreciate it. Hey, that's it. That's the episode.
Yeah,
See you back in a few weeks. We got a whole bunch of great guests lined up this season.
Yeah, we're excited.
So as always, coming to you out of Baltimore, I'm Anthony.
I'm Cece.
And this has been Lit
Pop
Bang.